Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Melanie and we have our November recap for you today. I'm also wearing my fun Christmas chickens shirt, so we're in the festive mood for December already. November, once again, was a very slow reading month for me. I don't know what was going on with me in October and November, but it took me a while to pick up a book in the beginning of the month, and then I wasn't really enjoying the main book I was reading, so I ended up DNFing that, so we'll get into that a little bit. But I did read some really interesting ones, and I read another 5-star, which is very exciting, and I can't wait to talk about it. So this month I also tried my best to participate in Neurovember, and I have 2 specific picks that I read for that, and then we'll talk about where the rest of my books fall under the bingo card, and we'll see if I was able to get bingo, which hopefully I will. But nope, no. Do not do that. So let's get started with the first book I read, which was my first pick for Neurovember. This is a book by Seanan Mcguire, who has OCD as well. And this book is actually the second book in the Wayward Children series. It's Down Among the Sticks and Bones. I read this one via Kindle Unlimited, so I don't have a physical copy. And this one kind of surprised me. I didn't really know what to expect, but I was expecting it like more YA, I guess. And I don't know if it is, but I don't think it is. It doesn't read YA at all. So I had a really fun time with this one. She has a really interesting way of writing that drew me in for sure. This book is about 2 characters from the first book and their world and like their backstory of the first book. So the Home for Wayward Children is kind of an orphanage for children that have gone to portal worlds and have come back and not been able to assimilate back into regular society. So they're sent to this boarding school in order to help them get back either through their door or to back into society, depending on what they want. So this is about 2 characters from the first book and their story in their portal world. And I didn't really know the details about the school or anything because that's not talked about in this book at all. So I kind of went in and it was just this story about these 2 girls that are twins, Jack and Jill. And it's a lot about like child neglect or raising children with strict ideas of who they are or should be and not letting them fully like become themselves, which then impacts how each of them view the world differently. I thought she did a really interesting job about showing that, as well as what happens in the portal world was really interesting and very fantasy-like and fun. I don't want to ruin it for anyone because that's the fun of reading it. And so I thought she did a great job and I really enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I will say one of the main characters has OCD, but it's not the type I was expecting. She had more like germaphobe OCD, which Seanan Mcguire doesn't have, I believe she said. She has a different kind, which I don't really know what kind, but I don't have the germaphobe OCD, so I was hoping for something a little more along the lines of like what I have or what classic OCD is, I would say. And there wasn't too much of it, so I was kind of hoping to get a little more into that, but they do explain how it came about throughout her childhood, so that was interesting. But I thought it was a really well done dynamic between the 2 sisters, and the ending was really great. I was not expecting that, and it was just fun. I had a really fun time reading it. But I will say neurodivergence isn't really a main plot in the book. I thought it would be more so because from what I read on like a Reddit or something, it seemed like it was a bigger part of the book, but it's not necessarily. So keep that in mind if you're looking for that within this type of book. But I really enjoyed Down Among the Sticks and Bones. I gave it 4.5 stars and I went straight into the first book because I was really curious about the backstory. And I will say, I'm very happy in a weird way that I read the second book before the first book because it made the experience unique, and like I was able to get the info on like what a portal world is like and then go into like the back end of like them coming back and the aftermath of all of that. So it was really interesting. And the second book is technically like should be a prequel to the first book in a way. So it worked out in that sense. But I actually really enjoyed reading the second book over the first book. So if you're interested in trying that out, I recommend it. But I will say, there is, I guess you could call it a spoiler in the second book for the first book, because you know something that none of the other characters or other readers that didn't read the second book first would know. But it kind of made the first book more fun to read, because you're like waiting for them to find out. So that was a fun aspect. But I did read the next book, or the first book, which is Every Heart a Doorway. And this specifically is about a girl who comes back from Portal, can't assimilate. Her parents don't believe her, don't understand her, just think she's a little crazy. So they send her to this boarding school where there's a lot of other people and children. I mean, they're older. They're like, a lot of them are older, like 17, 16. So they age out when they're 18. But it's a very interesting. You learn about other people's stories, not necessarily like the full stories, because you get those in the later books, I believe. But yeah, I thought it was really well done and like darker than I was expecting. Especially the first book. Like, you think like Wayward School for children, like, you know, Miss Peregrine or something, you know, with young kids. It's not really that. It's definitely more adult leaning, and the subject matter as well. And so that was really fun to read as well. It's just, honestly, they're right up my alley, I would say. So I had a great time, and I do plan on continuing this series. They're novellas, which also helps. They're like under 200 pages each. So it's a very easy thing to throw in between books if you need a little break. And there's a lot of them. I think there's still more. I don't know if it's a completed series, but I know there's at least 10. So it'll take me a while to get through them. But I do really want to. I think it's a fun little series to get involved with that I don't have to put pressure on myself to finish anytime soon. And I gave the first one 4.5 stars as well. The next book I tried and failed to finish is Immortal Dark by Tigest Girma. This one was something I was reading in October as well, and then I carried it over for my vampire prompt for November. And this one, I was trying so hard to get into it again, because I kind of put it down to read some other things in October, and then picked it back up in November, because I was really determined to finish it. And I even started the audiobook for parts of it, you know, to read it at night. But there's just something that just doesn't intrigue me about this book. I just didn't really care after a while. And this is not due to any reviews. I never actually read or listened to reviews on this book, or negative ones at least. And so that didn't really impact my DNF like I thought it would, because I knew I'd heard mixed opinions about it, but I wasn't entirely sure what those opinions were. So I don't know. I originally was like, oh, it'll be a soft DNF, but now I think it'll definitely be a hard DNF, just because mainly my issues with the main character. She is so infuriating and so unlikable, to the point where anything she did or any scene she was in, which is like all of them basically, just made me annoyed. I liked everyone else except for her, but the other characters weren't worth it enough for me to continue on with her story in like her perspective, even though it's written in third person. So I'll read you like the notes that I have about this character, because they're kind of funny. Seanan is kind of infuriating, not just because she's really morally gray, but because she's not that smart, but thinks she's the smartest person ever. That is kind of true, because she thinks she's the only one that knows like what's really going on, or like can see straight. Like, she thinks everyone else is crazy for associating with vampires and stuff, and she's really not that smart in her decisions either, so it's like it's not justified at all. She ignores everything that doesn't fit her narrative, and that is 100% true. She has a specific narrative about what happened or what she's trying to do, and anything that doesn't fit that, she just completely ignores or just dismisses, and it's really annoying. Like, she's not even listening to other people, and or even trying to like shift her mindset about things. And her and Susenyos's dynamic is so uncomfortable and confusing, and I know that's kind of the point, but I don't even understand why he puts up with her. Like, it just doesn't really make sense, that their whole dynamic. And then the whole story is very dramatic as well. Like, her choices make no sense at all, and that was just the hardest part to sit through. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, the choices in the story, like where it goes, doesn't really make sense to me. The concept is great, like black vampires in a university style setting, dark academia, like, you know, sounds amazing. But the motivations for the main character and just what happens there seems like it's trying to be like so dark and edgy, but it's just not coming across well. Like, I think the main character should be at least a little bit likable, but she's really not. And there's scenes in the very beginning that you're just like, what is her problem? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. And she's so stuck on this one idea that it's so frustrating, that it's so obvious that that is not what's happening. So yeah, okay, this one is basically about a girl whose sister goes missing, and she thinks she knows who the vampire is that took her, and goes to a school called Uxley, to her kind of family's owned house there, and fights with the vampire that lives there, and has to join this school in order to get her final inheritance of the house. So it's kind of like an inheritance issue, but also just that's not even really understood correctly. I don't know. Yeah, this one was weird, and I really wanted to like it and continue it, but it just kind of keeps going in weird directions. So I do not this, but I think I'll give it, like, if I had to star rate it, I'd give it like a 2.5. I would say I didn't hate it, like all aspects of it, but like the main character just made it so annoying to read. So yeah, okay, I'm done ranting about this one. The next book I read is There by Tommy Orange. This one I absolutely loved. I was sucked in by his writing, the style. It's everything I like in a structure to a story, told in short essays or stories or vignettes, however you want to describe it. Each person has kind of their own story. We follow 12 characters from Native communities, all going to the Big Oakland Powwow. So all of these stories do convene at the Big Oakland Powwow, but how? We don't know. So that's what we're finding out. And it's done in such a unique way, and the reveals are fun, and it's not a fun book to read. I'm not gonna say it. It's not a happy book whatsoever. It is very dark and depressing and brutal at the end. Honestly, I was not expecting it to go there, though I'm kind of it very much makes sense why it went there, but I thought he did such a good job of like writing these characters. I got so involved and interested in each and every one of them, and like how they interacted and connected, and yeah, he's a great storyteller for sure. I absolutely love his writing, and I want to read his next book, Wandering Stars, which also is kind of a sequel to this book. It has some of the same characters in it, so do not read that book before this one, because it definitely has spoilers for the ending of this one, and I'm glad I didn't read that one because I was going to, but no, this one is so good, and I highly recommend this. So I did give this one 5 stars, and yeah, I think this is my first Indigenous author as well, and oh, so good. So good. The next 2 books I read were for a reading vlog, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about those because you can check out my full thoughts in that reading vlog, and that is Nightbitch by Rachel Yoder and Lady Macbeth by Ava Reed. These 2 I had a really good time reading. I'll start with Nightbitch. This is about a stay-at-home mom who is kind of miserable and doesn't have a great husband that will contribute to taking care of the child, and so she kind of goes a little insane, and also starts noticing that she is turning into a dog. So very weird and surreal, and yeah, this book is weird. It is a weird book. It is an unhinged woman book for sure, and it just gets weirder, and it's written in a very interesting way. I think I really liked how she wrote it. The choices she made, I'm not entirely sure I loved every one of them, especially the ending, but the first part was a little hard to get through because it's a lot of the same, but the second part definitely picked up, and then the third part just got kind of bizarre. But yeah, if you like weird books or books about motherhood or books that make you not want to have kids, maybe, then this book is definitely for you. I gave this one a 3.5 star. And then next I finished Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid, and this one I really liked. I don't think it's my favorite Ava Reid. I think it's probably my least favorite Ava Reid, but that doesn't mean I didn't like it. I really liked it. I like all of her books. I talked a lot about the controversies around this in my vlog, if you're interested, which I had a lot of strong opinions about, but also I understand where people are coming from. So if you want to dig into that or have your own opinions to express, I'd be happy to read your comments and thoughts about it. I'd love that. And yeah, this book is about a girl named Roskilde who is 17, who is sent to Scotland to marry Lord Macbeth. She is technically Lady Macbeth from the Macbeth story, and there's some similarly named characters, so there is a lot in the story of Macbeth, but it's not at all like the play, so keep that in mind. And I really enjoyed that one. I think it's best if you read it not thinking about the Macbeth play at all, because it does stand on its own. At least I think it does. It's a light fantasy. There's not too many fantasy elements. Historical fiction, I would say, and very Ava Reid. A lot about being a woman in a man-run world, being weak, not being able to do much for herself, but she tries her best. And yeah, and there's definitely some romance in here, which was more than I was expecting, honestly, and not where I was expecting it from. So that was interesting. And yeah, so I like this one. I ended up giving this 4 stars. The last book I read was actually via audiobook, and that is The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. I was originally going to read Turtles All the Way Down, but I shifted to a nonfiction because I was very curious about the style in which he wrote this. So basically he's doing kind of reviews about random things throughout his life or on the earth and giving them 1 through 5 stars at the end, and I thought that was a really fun concept. And each story or essay is pretty short, so it's very easy to get through. And yeah, he's very well researched, and he narrates the book himself, so that was nice. And yeah, I just thought it was a really interesting concept for a nonfiction book that I hadn't read yet. And yeah, I was a little disappointed. I wanted a little more from him about his OCD in some of these stories. Not all of them, obviously, but there's one about the Notes app specifically. And I thought he was going to talk about how his OCD utilizes the Notes app, because mine 100% does. And I was hoping to relate a little more on that level, but that's not really the way he went. Or maybe he just doesn't have that experience either, because not all of us are the same, and that's fine. But I was hoping it would be a little more talking about that side of his life as well, but it wasn't really, which is fine. It's his choice. So that was a pick for Neurovember as well. I ended up giving the Anthropocene Reviewed 4 stars. And that is the 6.5 books I read this month. I do want to get into the Neurovember bingo card, though, to see where everything aligned. So I'll pull that up right now, and I'll kind of circle all of the prompts as I read them off. A lot of them overlap, but we'll see where we land with the bingo card. So starting with Down Among the Sticks and Bones by Seanan Mcguire, we have ND main character, ND rep for OCD. We have an ND author. It is a short read. It has LGBTQ plus rep, and it is fantasy. Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan Mcguire has ND rep, OCD, ND author, a short read, LGBT rep, fantasy, and I did read this in an other location, which adds a new one to the list. And I read half of this book, I would say, in the pet ER for my cat. He was completely fine, but I was just stressed and worried that he wasn't breathing, but he was totally breathing, so wasted a lot of money there, but fun times. You gotta be sure, right? I'm not including Immortal Darkness because I didn't finish it. There has definitely, it's BIPOC rep, the author is Indigenous, and it definitely talks about mental health for some of their characters. Yeah, definitely a wide variety of, there's some addiction, there's even fetal alcohol syndrome. There's some interesting things talked about in this book for sure. Nightbitch also has mental health, and I consider it a fun read. It is lighthearted, nothing too intense or dark or anything like that. So I'm adding that to the fun read list. Lady Macbeth is a fantasy and also published in 2024, so I can add that square. This one surprisingly doesn't have a lot of mental health in there. And then lastly, the Anthropocene Reviewed, we have an ND author, Sensitivity. I did this via audiobook. Other Species, some stories are about animals. They're not necessarily about how animal brains work, but he does go into detail about certain things about animals, and I really like that. So I'm including that in the Other Species prompt. And then lastly, Other Media. Other media is something not book related that you watched or listened to, or like a podcast, movie, TV show, YouTube videos about neurodivergence or mental health, or characters with them. And I watched a Chinese drama called Smile Code, which has a man with alexithymia, which is technically not a neuro disorder, but I feel like no one knows about it really. It's technically a personality disorder, but it is when you are not able to express emotions properly or understand emotions properly, usually caused by a trauma. But I thought that was an interesting thing to talk about in this video, so I'm including that as my other media piece because I watched all of that in November. Yeah, that one's not really accessible unless you have like an Asian streaming service. Maybe 10-cent video. So yeah, unless you have that, you probably won't be able to watch it. So sorry, but I thought it was pretty well done. So let's see, did I get bingo? Okay, we have a fun read, mental health, Other Species, published in 2024, BIPOC rep, Sensitivity, ND main character, Other Location, ND rep, Free Space of course, ND author, a short read, LGBTQIA. Oh, I forgot about For Real for Anthropocene Reviewed because it is nonfiction. So For Real, and then Other Media, and then fantasy or science fiction. Ooh, the sun is coming down. Do I look weird? Oh, I am fully in this. I didn't realize that was happening, sorry. Okay, hopefully that wasn't happening for too long and it's not too distracting, but we're back to a little darker now. So I think I did get bingo at least once. I think the second column, a fun read, BIPOC rep, ND rep, a short read, and Other Media. I haven't marked these out. I know you can see on the screen a lot easier, but I'm trying to figure it out without marking them because I haven't done that work yet. And then we have almost bingo in the first column, and then do we have any diagonal? I don't think so. Almost the second row, except for I didn't do neuro in the title. And yeah, I think that's it, but at least I got one bingo. That's nice without using the free space. I feel proud of that. I highly recommend in general, not even just for Neurovember, to read books by neurodivergent authors or about neurodivergent topics or with main characters with neurodivergence, because as someone who is neurodivergent, I want to see more rep about how my brain works, because honestly, even reading to authors with OCD, I still haven't found that, and I would love to. And so I'm gonna continue my quest to find a book that I can relate to by someone with the same neurodivergence as me. So that will be fun and a good exercise. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day. Bye!